What's up, everybody? Sad news today. Um, it's just been reported that Burt Reynolds has died. Apparently, he had a heart attack today, and he died in the hospital. Um, 82 years old. Um, he had just been scheduled to be in a movie coming up. Um, Quentin Tarantino's latest movie about Charles Manson. Um, I think it was called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But Burt hadn't shot his scenes yet, so that part's gonna have to be recast. Obviously, very sad, very sad news. That movie had two days he was scheduled to shoot for. I'm sure it would have been an amazing scene, and no, unfortunately, they're gonna have to recast it and find somebody else. So very sad. He died in Florida. Uh, Reports are saying that he was transported to the hospital after going into cardiac arrest. Um, Fortunately, his family was by his side when he passed. And anybody that knows anything about Burt knows that he's had uh, heart problems for years. I remember he underwent heart surgery um, years ago. I want to say probably like 2010 or something. Um, but apparently he's been in ill health of late, very frail, and the guy is an acting cinematic legend. So we've lost a great one today in films. I grew up watching his movies in the 80s. Some of you guys will obviously he's got a long list of movies, of great, amazing movies that he uh, either starred in or he was a part of. But Boogie Nights, he was in that. That was a more recent film. Striptease with Demi Moore. Smokey and the Bandit, of course, which is one of my favorite movies. Another great one he was in was Deliverance. If you haven't watched that, which it's probably hard to find somebody that hasn't seen Deliverance, but an amazing movie. So it's a sad day. Um, 82 years old. He died in Florida, if I didn't mention that. Bert's always been a southerner. He was actually born up nearby us in Michigan, in Lansing, way back in the 30s, a few years before my dad was born, actually. So, February 11th, 1936, Lansing, Michigan. Burt was born, and he passed today, September 6th, 2018. He died in Jupiter, Florida. Uh, Very sad, unfortunate day, that's for sure. Guy has been working in the film industry his whole life. Um, as I mentioned, he was scheduled to be in Quentin Tarantino's upcoming movie about Charles Manson. He hadn't shot that yet. His last film that he appears in uh, is going to be Defining Moments. That's what that's called. And he played a character called Chester in that. That has not been released yet. So that'll be a posthumous, that's not how you say it, posthumous release. Hopefully I'm saying that right. So I just got that notification on my phone. I wanted to share it with you guys. There's so much you can say about him. He was nominated for an Oscar for Best Actor in a Supporting Role for his role as porn director Jack Horner in Boogie Nights. That was back in '97. That's definitely a movie for adults, but it's a good movie if you haven't seen it. And he won the Golden Globe that year. He was actually he started out as an athlete, and then he transitioned uh, to film. And for a while, he was actually the biggest uh, actor in the world. He was the highest paid actor. Um, he just had an amazing screen presence where he was very likable. He just had that it factor about him. Um, he did have a he did have one child, a son. Not sure how old he is. And for people that are my age or older, you'll remember that he was married to Lonnie Anderson back in the 80s. Um, they got married back in 88, split in 93. And for those of you who don't remember, that was kind of a nasty breakup. One of the nastiest breakups in Hollywood. He accused her of infidelity and cheating and sleeping around. She accused him of being physically abusive. And there was drug allegations and lots of other things. When they split, uh, Burt agreed in court to pay Lonnie over $200,000 as a one-time payment. So, nasty breakup. You know, like I said, he started out as an athlete. He was a college football player. He played down in Florida State. And his roommate, for those of you who know Lee Corso, not sure if you do or not, but that was his roommate. And he kind of broke precedent back in the 70s when he appeared nude on Cosmo, on the cover of Cosmo magazine. He was on a bearskin rug back in '72. And that became, that was kind of a national sensation. Later on, he went on to say that he regretted that decision, but, you know, we all make mistakes. Sure, nobody held it against him. There's far worse things you can do in the world than pose naked on a magazine cover, the way I look at it. But I remember him saying that he thought it was really stupid and he didn't know what he was thinking. And I know he regretted doing it. Anyway, back in the 70s, he was, like I said, as I mentioned, he was the top paid, biggest name movie star for probably 5 years. He worked with some amazing actresses too. I remember he worked with Dolly Parton. I remember he worked with her. Goldie Hawn. Let's see. Julie Andrews, I want to say he worked with. Jill Clayburgh, that's another one. So, great actor, gone, and definitely not forgotten. We'll always have the treasure of his films that he left, obviously. Um, Definitely a sad day, though, that's for sure. Sad when anybody dies, obviously, but when an actor dies, you know, you didn't necessarily obviously know that person, but it's still you feel like you know them. You kind of become attached to people on TV or in the movies, especially if they're likable, and in addition to being likable in real life, that even kind of adds to their appeal and their legacy for sure. I guess his nickname was Buddy. I did not know that. So he started off in TV and westerns in the 60s, and then from there he transitioned it onto the big screen in the 70s and 80s. I remember he had a TV show on CBS called Evening Shade. That aired back in the 80s. I'd have to look up when exactly it was on air. That was a real good show. I watched that. So I guess he was in the army and he later served as chief of police. I did not know that. So like I said, he played football at Florida State after they moved from Michigan down to Florida. And he was a highly decorated athlete. So I mean, he was a very talented human being, talented actor, talented athlete. He's just kind of one of those. He's kind of a good old boy. He's just one of those guys that you know. He was a man's man. That's how I would describe Burt Reynolds, a man's man. So while he was working on his film career, he uh, he ended up dropping out of college to chase his acting dreams, and that's when he decided to head to New York. And while he was living there, he worked in restaurants and clubs. While occasionally he landed a spot, a role here and there, on TV or in theater. So nothing was handed to Burt. He definitely worked for everything he had, um, everything he got, excuse me, he worked for. So he was kind of a blue collar actor, somebody that a lot of us can relate to. He worked for what he got. It wasn't handed to him. So back in the 50s, he had recurring roles on Gunsmoke, Riverboat, and then he had his own series, Hawk. That was back in the 60s. It was I don't think it was on very long. But slowly his career progressed and he started getting bigger roles. Um, like I said, Deliverance uh, came out in 72. Just an amazing movie. If you haven't seen it, where have you been? Just kidding, but it's definitely a movie you want to watch. Very, it's a very disturbing and troubling movie, but it's a movie that you really can't stop watching. It just pulls you in right from the start, and think of all the worst cliches about Southerners and how they kind of like uh, being a little too friendly with their own family, and then translate that into being in the woods and as a visitor and encountering some people that probably may have had some intermarital or interfamily relations that mainstream America certainly frowns upon. So I really don't have to say too much about it, but like I said, if you haven't seen it, great movie. And I think that that movie really catapulted him into stardom, in my opinion. I might be wrong, but that movie was huge. And obviously, let's see how many, 46 years later, it's people are still talking about it, and it's still considered uh, a masterpiece for sure. So this live stream is basically me just paying homage to Burt and sharing that unfortunate news with you guys out there. From Wisconsin here. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you tuning in. Talking about Burt Reynolds. He's an American actor from over here in the USA. Uh, Passed away today. Heart attack, 82 years old. Died in the hospital. Um, so I'm just kind of sharing that update with my viewers. And also kind of trying to share his legacy. As you can see, this is a really informal live stream. I didn't prepare for it or set anything up. I just got a notification on my phone, and I was like, "Oh man, you got to be kidding me!" And I found out it was Bert. I decided, hey, I need to share this right now and let people know uh, what happened, and then also kind of let people know who he was and what he did in life and why he was such an amazing actor, and he'll be remembered as uh, a man's man actor. I'm trying to think of actors today that I could compare him to in movies, and I can't think of anybody that compares to Burt Reynolds. So he worked. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your condolences. I appreciate it. My heart goes out to his family, of course. Death is hard for anybody to deal with. But this is more of me just trying to share his career and his accomplishments with everybody and not dwell on his passing. He had a long, productive, and successful, happy life. He had a gift and he shared it with the world. I mean, very few people are going to be as fortunate to live a life as uh, impactful as his. So back in '77, he made Smokey and the Bandit with Sally Field and Jerry Reed. That movie took in over $100 million at the box office, which for 1977, that was a lot of money. Even now today, a movie isn't considered big in 2018 until it hits that $100 million mark. So you think of the rate of inflation, what $100 million back in 1977 meant. And also in 1977, people weren't going to the movies as much as they were now. So $100 million back there, obviously it was a blockbuster, it was a big movie. Followed that up with Smokey and the Bandit 2, that was 1980. And then wrapped up the trilogy with Smokey and the Bandit Part 3, that was back in 1983. Then for some of you who are older, you'll remember he appeared in the film Semi-Tough. That was back in 1977. Worked alongside Chris Christopherson. That was about football. Then another funny movie that he made back in this, actually it was 80s, 1981. He made a film called The Cannonball Run. And that was a star-studded movie, just packed full of stars. Very funny, kind of a one-of-its-kind movie. And then he followed that up with, that's where he ended up working with Dolly Parton back in 1982. They made a film together that was called The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. And then he actually worked with Clint Eastwood back in 1984. Movie called City Heat. He made a bunch of other movies in the 80s. Stroker Ace, Stick, Paternity. Those are all 80s movies he made. Any movie he appeared in, he stood out. Whether he was a main, like, he had, like, one of the main roles, or he was just a kind of a minor character. Every role that he played, he brought something to it that was just, I don't know, he just brought that it factor to every role that he was in. Hi, Ditsy Schmitzy.
Does it say you have 3 friends on?
Yeah,
Because Abby said she commented on here, but it never showed up.
I didn't see it. Oh yeah, so Evening Shade. That was a show that I used to watch. I don't know if it came on in 90 or if it went off there in 90, but he had a TV show called Evening Shade. That was a good show. So after Evening Shade, his career kind of slowed down in terms of movies. Of course, he was getting older, but he was still working. He worked, like I said, I mentioned from the start. He worked from basically college all the way up to his passing right now. So he was supposed to be in uh, that movie that was coming out by Quentin Tarantino. He passed away before he filmed the scene, so he won't be in that movie. I'm sure he would have been amazing in that. Looking forward to seeing that movie about Charles Manson. I'm sure that'll be a great movie. He also had the infamous mustache. For all you ladies out there that like mustache rides, he had one of those. It was he was considered to be a sex symbol by women. He was a very good-looking guy. Like I said, he was kind of a man's man. He's kind of a rebellious but likable guy, you know. He's the kind of guy you thought to yourself, hey, I think I'd have a good time, sitting at the bar watching a football game, BSing with this guy. And I'm sure that if he had the chance, that would have worked out really good. As I mentioned, he was in Striptease back in '96. That was with Demi Moore. Um, Played a politician in that. I can't remember that movie very well. Demi Moore was in it though, so I'm sure she looked good. And Boogie Nights, I think he made after. Boogie Nights, I know he made after that because that came out in '97. That's a good movie, and not just because it's about the porn industry, but that's not why I think it was a good movie, or why most people think it was a good movie. It's just a really well made movie. It was the story. It was kind of a behind the scenes uh, documentary almost about life in uh, the porn industry in the '70s and then into the '80s, and it followed the career of Mark Wahlberg was the lead role in that, and it really showed the rise of him as a young guy in the porn industry, where he felt like he was pretty much on top of the world and invincible, and ended up. Uh, well, I don't want to give away the movie, but uh, it didn't end well for him. Didn't end well for Mark's character in that movie, but good movie if you haven't seen it. Burt got a Best Supporting Actor nomination for his role in that movie. He didn't win, but he got nominated, which is impressive in itself. And after that, he kind of re-emerged back in the spotlight after Boogie Nights came out. He was kind of back on everybody's radar, the public's radar, and we're like, oh, this guy, for the younger people at that time who weren't familiar with his work, they were thinking, this guy's really good. And so after that, anyway, it was nice because he kind of resurrected his popularity, and he gained a whole new generation of fans that weren't familiar with his work. So, and I remember he made some films after that. Pups he made. None of them were. Boogie Nights was his last really critically acclaimed role, but he made some movies after that. Driven, I remember he was in that. That was like in 2001. So, like I said, for those of you that tuned in live, I appreciate it. It's unfortunate set of events that I'm reporting on, but uh, I'm celebrating. It's a celebration of life. So, thanks for tuning in, Miss Johnston. I appreciate it. I'll have to stop by your next live stream and check out your uploads. I appreciate it, my friend. So this live stream was just a celebration of Burt Reynolds' life and me just paying homage to his career and sort of a remembrance for him. He's certainly an actor that's worth remembering, that's for sure. He was a resilient star, and he definitely surprised a lot of people. Bye. See you next time. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. But 40 years in the film industry, in front of the camera. So not a lot of actors that can say that you can say that about their career. 40 years being in front of the camera. So he definitely was a talented guy, and was kind of had that magnetism and appeal to his film audiences, and he left an impact on me. He will be missed. I think I'm going to watch Smokey and the Bandit tonight. I haven't watched that movie in a while, and I really like it. Like I said, it's one of my favorite movies. If you haven't watched it before, I recommend that you do. It's a good movie. So, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.